The storm rolled across the valley like a punishment from the heavens, and Leora felt every drop as if it belonged to the fate forced upon her. Her village elders had declared her a troublemaker, someone who spoke too boldly, someone who didn't know her place. And so, as punishment, she was sent up the mountain to serve a widowed man who lived alone, a man feared for his silence, his scars, and his past. She walked with trembling hands, unsure if she was being offered or sacrificed. They said the mountain man had once loved deeply, only to lose his wife in an avalanche that nearly took his own life. Since then, Rowan Hale allowed no one near him. The villagers whispered that he spoke to no one, hated sunlight, and preferred wolves to humans. As Leora trudged upward, her heart heavy, she repeated to herself that she wasn't afraid, but she was. She feared the quiet more than the man. When she reached the cabin, Rowan stood in the doorway like a shadow carved from stone. Broad shoulders, hollow eyes, a man whose grief hung on him heavier than the furs he wore. He didn't speak. He only stepped aside and let her enter. Leora swallowed hard. This was not a home, it was a wound that never healed. She sensed it in the air, loss, loneliness, and something buried deep. The first night was painfully silent. Rowan ate alone, sitting at a table built for two, though one chair had clearly been untouched for years. Leora served him carefully, avoiding his eyes. She wasn't here by choice. He wasn't forced to accept her, yet he didn't push her away. That confused her more than his silence. She lay awake that night wondering which one of them was truly being punished. In the early morning, Rowan left without a word, heading into the forest with an axe slung over his shoulder. Leora watched from the doorway, her breath rising like smoke. She should have feared him, but strangely, she sensed he feared himself. She cleaned the cabin, discovering little bits of a life once full, a carved wooden comb, a half-finished quilt, a pressed flower trapped in a book of mountain herbs. That flower told her more about Rowan than any villager ever had. It wasn't old enough to be from his lost wife. It was newer, far newer. Leora's heart thudded. Why would he keep something gathered recently if he had lost interest in life? She tucked the question away like a secret. Some wounds heal slowly, others heal when someone finally notices them. When Rowan returned that evening, he found the cabin warmer, cleaner, changed. He paused in the doorway, his eyes flicking around the room as though surprised something could improve without breaking. Leora waited for him to complain, but he simply nodded slightly, a gesture so small she nearly missed it. It was the first acknowledgement he'd offered her. Days passed. Slowly, Rowan's silence became less frightening, more peaceful. Leora began humming while she worked. Rowan, though silent, listened. One evening, when the wind howled fiercely, she timidly asked, "Does it always storm so hard here?" Rowan looked at her for a long moment, then spoke his first words, "Only when the mountain is hurting." His voice was deep, rough, startling, but gentle. It wasn't much, but for Leora, it was everything. That one sentence meant he wasn't cold, just wounded. And something inside her stirred with sympathy. She didn't know why she cared so quickly, but she did. The mountain was hurting, but so was he. And maybe she was meant to heal more than just the cabin walls. One afternoon, Leora burned her hand while tending the fire. She hissed in pain, clutching her palm. Rowan moved so fast she couldn't breathe, kneeling beside her, taking her hand in his large, calloused grip. His touch was cautious but steady. His thumb brushed her skin, lightly, almost afraid of causing more harm. She looked up at him, and for the first time, he didn't look away. In that small moment, something shifted. His touch wasn't just comforting, it was awakening. And she felt, shockingly, that she wasn't being punished anymore. She was being seen. Rowan wrapped her hand gently, and when he stood, he murmured, "Be careful." It was a simple phrase, yet it shattered the cold distance between them. As the days warmed, Leora began accompanying Rowan into the woods. He taught her where to step on snowy slopes, how to read animal tracks, how to sense danger before it arrived. She watched him closely, the strength in his movements, the quiet intelligence in his eyes, the way he always positioned himself between her and cliffs. He protected without announcing it. One evening, returning from gathering wood, a storm swept in faster than expected. Rowan grabbed her arm, pulling her beneath a rock ledge as snow crashed down around them. His body shielded hers instinctively. She could feel his heartbeat. Slow, steady, grounding. He whispered, "You're safe." Those two words melted something in her chest. Back at the cabin, Rowan started a fire while Leora shivered in her damp clothes. His jaw tightened with concern. "Sit closer," he said softly. She did. For a long moment, they sat in the flickering warmth, silence full of unspoken truths. Leora realized she no longer feared him. She feared leaving him. But the village had not forgotten her punishment. One morning, a group of elders climbed the mountain to check on her obedience. They spoke to Rowan with arrogance, as if he were an animal being inspected. Leora felt a wave of shame. She didn't belong to them, and she certainly wasn't a punishment for him. Rowan's expression darkened. When they ordered her to return with them, claiming her time was done, Rowan stepped forward. "She stays," he said, his voice low but powerful. The elders blanched. Leora's breath caught. No one defied them. Yet Rowan stood tall, unshaken. "She is not a burden," he continued. "Not to me." Leora's heart almost broke at the sincerity in his tone. The elders left angrily, threatening consequences. But Leora didn't care. She turned to Rowan, trembling. Why did you say that?" Rowan looked at her with eyes more open than she'd ever seen. "Because your presence brings life back to this place," he whispered. "To me." Emotion swelled between them like a rising tide. Leora stepped closer, her voice shaking. "I thought I was sent here to be punished." Rowan gently touched her cheek, his thumb brushing warmth into her skin. "Then the punishment was mine," he murmured. "For believing my life ended when she died." His honesty was raw, painful, and beautiful. Their closeness felt inevitable. Rowan leaned in slightly, hesitant, waiting. Leora's breath trembled. She placed her hand over his, guiding it to her cheek. The simple touch unraveled him. His forehead rested against hers as if he were rediscovering how to feel something other than grief. Nothing was rushed. Just two souls learning each other again. But the mountain had one more twist. A landslide struck near the cabin, shaking the earth. Rowan grabbed Leora and pulled her outside just as part of the roof collapsed. Snow and debris roared around them. Leora clung to him as he shielded her once again. When the ground settled, the cabin was damaged but still standing, like Rowan himself. Breathless, Leora looked up at him. "You saved me again." Rowan cupped her face. "I'm not losing someone I care for. Not again." His voice cracked with emotion he had buried for years. Leora wrapped her arms around him tightly, reassuring him she wasn't going anywhere. They rebuilt the damaged roof together, working side by side. For the first time, Rowan laughed, quietly, awkwardly, but real. Leora felt her heart bloom at the sound. She teased him gently, and he surprised her with a soft smile that made him look almost young again, as though grief had finally loosened its grip. Nights became warmer. Rowan began leaving small gestures, fresh berries at her place, a hand-carved wooden hairpin, a blanket he repaired for her. Leora responded with her own care, mending his worn shirts, cooking meals he once ignored, humming songs that lightened the cabin. They weren't just surviving, they were becoming each other's home. One evening, while snowflakes drifted gently outside, Rowan approached her with an unfamiliar nervousness in his eyes. "Leora," he began, voice low, "you came here as punishment. But you became the first warmth I've felt in years." Leora's breath hitched. She stepped closer, eyes glossy with emotion. "I thought I would always be alone," Rowan continued. "But then you touched my life, and everything changed." His words echoed the unspoken bond that had grown slowly, beautifully, between them. Leora lifted her hand and rested it against his heart, feeling it beat strong and alive. "Rowan," she whispered, "I don't want to leave. Not now. Not ever." He closed his eyes, overwhelmed. When he opened them, they held a softness she had longed to see, a softness that once belonged to a man who loved fiercely. Slowly, he leaned in, their lips meeting in a kiss that was tender, long-awaited, and full of healing. From that night forward, the cabin was no longer a lonely shrine to the past. It became a home filled with laughter, warmth, shared meals, and quiet touches. Leora's presence softened Rowan's rough edges. Rowan's steady care made Leora feel protected and cherished. Together, they built something stronger than fate or punishment. When the village eventually returned to reclaim her, they found a woman no longer afraid, and a man no longer grieving. Rowan stood beside her, not as a master but as a partner. "She stays," he said again, but this time, Leora said it with him. And so the punishment that was meant to break them instead brought two wounded souls together, proving that one touch can indeed change everything forever.